10 years. 10 long years since we have seen Canada and the United States face off in an international best-on-best competition. But after last night, I think it's safe to say that this might be one of the most insane matchups that we have seen in a long time. Well, as you all know by now, the United States officially beat Team Canada in their first matchup of the Four Nations Face-Off 3-1, advancing themselves to the championship game with 6 points in the round robin, as opposed to 2 points for the other three teams as they look to fight for that final spot. Now, this is a big win for the United States, but it also opens up a conversation about player development, and if the United States have officially passed Canada in producing the most talent when it comes to hockey around the world. We'll get into that at the end of the video, but before we do that, we're going to be recapping last night's game to explain how and why the United States completely dominated Canada in their first matchup of the Four Nations Face-Off. Let's start just by talking about some of the lead-ups to the game. Headlines to start the day surrounded Cale Makar, Canada's best defenseman, having a troubling illness that would ultimately keep him out of the lineup. A big blow to Canada's blue line, especially after losing Shea Theodore in Game 1 against Sweden. But no worries, because Canada was prepared, bringing Thomas Harley to Boston a few days earlier and eventually giving him the call to join Team Canada's lineup with the news of Makar missing the game. Puck drop was around 8:30, but at 8:20 the national anthem rained down at the Bell Center, and like most expected, this was met with plenty of boos from the Canadian crowd. Puck drop, and immediately Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel dropped the gloves in what would be the first tilt of the night. This was quickly followed by his brother Brady Tkachuk and Sam Bennett, and 9 seconds later, JT Miller and Colton Parayko would go at it as well. 3 fights in 9 seconds between these two rivals set the tone that this game was going to be hard fought and very physical. In all of the scrums, though, was a penalty by JT Miller for cross-checking, giving Canada the first power play of the night right at the start of the game. Canada would put out their top power play, but the penalty killing unit for the United States was shut down in this one, as Canada could not convert, and for the majority of the first 4 minutes, it was just back and forth as both teams tried to settle in what was an emotional start to this game. Shortly after, though, Connor McDavid would be the first to light the lamp. Drew Doughty hits Connor McDavid in stride in the neutral zone. He wheels his way around Charlie McAvoy and backhands a shot right over Connor Hellebuyck's shoulder, exploding the Bell Center crowd and giving Canada the first lead of the night 1-0. This is where we need to give some credit to the United States coaching staff, because this was a huge turning point in the game that not a lot of people are talking about. Immediately following McDavid's goal, the physicality in this game was adjusted, not allowing the Canadians to have any space regardless of the player. A perfect example of this is when McDavid tried to repeat a quick zone entry only to be met by Charlie McAvoy, who laid a thunderous hit on him against the boards. A few moments after the goal and some of these amazing hits, the United States would catch Canada's defense in a funky change, allowing them to take advantage of Sam Reinhart as a defender in Canada's zone. Jack Eichel dishes a pretty pass to Jake Guentzel as he beats Jordan Binnington along the ice, tying the game 1-1. This is one of those soft goals that a lot of Canadian fans are talking about when it comes to Jordan Binnington, because had this been happening on the other side of the ice with Connor Hellebuyck, I don't think that this same goal would have gone in. Tricky play, obviously it didn't look like Jake Guentzel was trying to go on the ice, it looked like he was trying to go up high, but regardless, we have a tie game with 9:45 left in the first period. The rest of the first had some great chances, with both teams getting a power play and both being shut down by Binnington and Hellebuyck, who, outside of those first 2 goals, were pretty tremendous at keeping this game tied up. After 20 minutes, it's 1-1 in what has been an incredible start to this game. Second period, Canada comes out hot and gets a chance from Sam Bennett, who walks in on a 2-on-1, only to be met by a casual blocker save by Connor Hellebuyck. The United States would also get a great opportunity from Dylan Larkin, who would miss the net wide in what could have been a tie-breaking goal. But don't worry, if you're a Detroit Red Wings fan, a few moments later, Dylan Larkin would be given another chance to get on the board. A turnover by Sidney Crosby in the offensive zone results in a 2-on-1 going back the other way. Larkin recognizes the bad line switch from Canada, and the United States winger would fire a shot over Binnington's pad for the score. The game was settled in now, and there was a back and forth between both teams, each having some chances to add to this 2-1 game. Third period was a defensive masterclass by the States. However, there was some bad news with one of their forwards, Matthew Tkachuk, who looked to be injured, sitting on the bench for the remainder of the game after taking this chance from his brother Brady Tkachuk. It looked like he talked to the training staff multiple times and attempted to get back onto the ice, but kept shaking his head. Apparently, according to the broadcast, he was speaking to Tortorella and Mike Sullivan, saying that he just couldn't go. With 2 minutes remaining, Jordan Binnington would run to the bench as Canada pulled their goalie in a last-ditch effort to try and tie this game. However, Jake Guentzel would take a pass from Dylan Larkin and deposit it into the empty net, giving the United States a 2-goal lead. Now, some say that this may have been offside, but Canada elected to not issue a challenge. So ultimately, it was 3-1 as the final score, with the United States beating Canada and advancing to the championship game. Alright, so let's talk takeaways, and I think the biggest thing and most obvious thing from this matchup was goaltending. Connor Hellebuyck has been phenomenal in this tournament, and he's really silenced a lot of his critics like PK Subban, who say that he's not built for this big stage and that he's just a mess waiting to happen. But I do want to say we shouldn't be just getting on Jordan Binnington either. He's been pretty good in both of his starts. Yes, there's maybe a goal or two that he would want back. That Jake Guentzel one was kind of bad, as well as the Adrian Kempe one against Sweden. But for the most part, I don't think it's been the worst thing for Team Canada. Even though I do think they wish they could have somebody a little bit more consistent and reliable. I feel like Binnington has been representable for Canada this year and isn't really the reason why they're losing all of these games. I do think that some of the injuries to their defense are a big problem for Canada right now. You don't have Shea Theodore, you don't have Cale Makar, you don't have Alex Pietrangelo. Those are your 3 best defensemen, and in this tournament, none of them are playing. So when you're going up against a powerhouse like Team USA, it is fair to say that you don't have some of your best players to represent your country. At the same time, though, you can say that for the United States because they don't have Quinn Hughes in their lineup either. Next thing I want to talk about is physicality, and for a while I feel like the United States have been the more physical team against Canada, but Canada has always just been able to outskill them, having more talent on their roster. But nowadays, with the United States having such a talented forward core, I feel like this isn't really an advantage for Canada anymore. Sure, they have McDavid, they have McKinnon and Crosby, but the United States aren't playing with a bunch of scrubs. They have the Tkachuk brothers, Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes. They're matching them skill for skill, and also still playing a very physical brand of hockey that sort of just neutralizes all of the talent from Team Canada and giving the United States the edge here. I think this is where we're starting to see the discrepancy between the United States and Canada. The US continues to evolve and produce players at a high level, and Canada's doing that too, but they're still playing that sort of skillful game and not bringing the physicality to a game that is going to provide a little bit more hitting and forechecking when you're competing against such a big and strong team like the US. I think that was a huge takeaway in this one. It just seemed like Canada couldn't keep up with some of the hits from the US, and they really set the tone early and took advantage of this matchup. And the last thing I want to talk about is depth, because I feel like the United States really showed up in this department during this game, and this could be more of a roster makeup problem than really not having the players to compete, because Canada left a lot of talented guys at home. Just a couple, for example, are Mark Scheifele and Nick Suzuki, who I feel should be in this tournament over guys like Hagel and Cirelli. Now, Hagel and Cirelli were brought in because they're defensive guys, and they're familiar with John Cooper and his style and what they need to do for him on the ice when it comes to like penalty kills, hitting, and just getting some gritty minutes in. But I just feel like the United States built a complementary roster, having some incredible players like Dylan Larkin playing 4th line minutes, and loving it, by the way. He's just happy to be there and compete at this stage. And that showed up in this game. You have Jake Guentzel scoring 2 goals, Dylan Larkin scoring a goal. The United States don't need their best players to score because some of their best players are on their bottom 2 lines, and I think that that's just something that Canada missed when it came to this tournament. It's almost like they tried to build out a roster that could compete with the United States rather than just taking the best players that were available to compete in this tournament. And this all sort of leads to that final question that we were talking about. And I don't really have the answer here, but I would love to hear from you guys and just the overall consensus from the public. Has the United States surpassed Canada as the best country when it comes to building players and developing players around the world? Or does Canada still hold that and this was just one game and we shouldn't overreact to this? Maybe we have to see how the championship game goes if Canada is fully healthy with Cale Makar, but I just want to hear from you guys after this first game. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this and the game from last night, your biggest takeaways, and make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'll also consider putting out a recap for Finland versus Sweden if you guys want to see that too, so drop that in the comments. Thank you guys as always for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode.